Kawere, welcome to Born Extinct, my journey to acknowledgement of my ancestors and my authentic spiritual self. My name is Atakwa, and I was born extinct. After the 1500s, trade routes linking Western Europe, Africa, and the Americas started developing. Thousands of ships carrying merchants, explorers, migrants, slaves, and pirates appeared. Vessels bound to Europe carried gold, silver, tobacco, rice, and other cargo, including travelers. As maritime trade expanded in the 1600s, hundreds of thousands of impoverished and persecuted Europeans found work in America, Asia, and Africa. In the early 1500s, fleets of between 30 and 90 vessels sailed to the American colonies from Spain each year. Between 1500 and 1650, the Spanish transported 11 tons of gold and 16,000 tons of silver from the New World. By 1609, they had gained Haiti and Puerto Rico. With its most formidable army and navy, they looted huge deposits of gold, silver, gems, and timber, resulting in extreme wealth and glory for war-torn Spain, and the disease-ridden country was able to raise itself. Conditions at sea were dreadful, with poor diet, hard labor, harsh discipline, low wages, violence and disease. Desertion was very common. By the late 1600s, vegetables, wool, timber, grain, wine, cattle, ivory, fur, sacred objects and art, enslaved people, precious metals and gems and human remains were being looted and transported to Europe. In 1599, hoping to break the Spanish and Portuguese monopoly in the slave trade, spice and tea trade, the first Dutch ship set sail. By the mid-1600s, the Dutch had 150 ships patrolling the seas around the Cape to the Persian Gulf and Japan, with 50,000 employees and a private army of 10,000 soldiers. By 1602, the VOC, who is still known in South Africa as the Heeren 17, had made 5,000 voyages from Holland to Asia. Sea travel was important for wide-scale trade for the European. Disease, however, was rife on the boats, and everyone lived in absolute squalor. Together with onboard injuries, ship doctors worked in cramped and squalor conditions with absolutely no anesthetic and antibiotics during battles, resulting in infection, gangrene, and death. The golden age of sail for the Dutch was also the golden age for the pirate. During 1700 to 1725, hundreds of ships plagued the waters around the world. Pirates associated with the Caribbean also operated off the coast of Africa, the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. The plunder they took from merchants and slave vessels were mainly goods profitable at the time. In wartime Britain, a method called impressment to force young men into the Royal Navy was employed. Gangs of between 10 and 12 men would simply stalk these men in the street and violently capture those found loitering. The Crown claimed the right to seize and force men of seafaring age and experience into the Royal Navy. These laws passed in 1703, 1705, 1740, and 1779 were enforced during naval wars, press gangs derived from the word impressment, which means to coerce someone into government service. By the 17th century, ships were nothing more than floating concentration camps where an unwilling crew kidnapped by press gangs was systematically beaten, starved, and terrorized into working. By the end of the 18th century, pay on merchant ships were less than on naval ships, but soldiers shared what they found on captured ships, self-enriching themselves and making up the shortfall. Professional sailors were in great demand during colonial times, but sea travel did not suit everybody. Young sailors often fell overboard during storms, never to be seen again. Ocean-going professions were romanticized and young men joined out of patriotism, thrill-seeking, or sometimes just the feeling of invisibility. Seafaring offered social and financial independence for the majority of peasants and serfs. Young men had to be very brave to sail with navies, privateers, and merchant ships. Sailors went to sea as young boys of between 9 and 12, and by the time they reached 16, they would be rated and considered as professional seamen. Sailors knew well that 50% of them would perish on the ship. They will be wrapped in a sail, feet first, and thrown overboard to avoid decaying on the ship. Stowaways were cashing in on the glory. They were usually escaping a dire situation at home in Europe, and at times they were just adventurous. The eminence of wealth and gold and silver carried by each returning fleet offered an endearing opportunity for British, Dutch, Spanish, and French sailors, if they survived. Seasickness, a wave motion-induced sickness, was an unavoidable feature. Both the employee and the employer find it difficult to avoid the plague at sea. Although medical knowledge during the colonial period was typically dominated by fear and superstition as well as delusions of sea monsters, it was the Greeks who first identified the link between seasickness and anxiety. Scurvy, with its stench and appalling symptoms, which disintegrated the body, killed more people than the American Civil War. An estimated 2 million seamen died of this disease. It caused settlers to lose their sense of reality. Hallucinations and nightmares were common. The exploration of sub-Saharan Africa started in the 15th century when Europe's maritime empire focused only on the lives of rich men. In 1848, almost 100 years of dumping convicts in the Cape, Sir Harry Smith, on behalf of the British Crown, declared the Cape a penal settlement. The Cape settlers protested, yet on 19 September of that same year, a ship with 7,000 convicts arrived in Simonstown. By 1857, there were 720 convict camps scattered around the colony from the Cape to Clanwilliam. The period between 1600 and 1850 saw significant conquest of colonies in the New World and the establishment of trade posts and military bases. By the 18th century, Europe drew significant wealth from every continent in the New World. Europe's wealth is built entirely on the theft of humans and land and the cannibalism of its resources. Kai Gangangs for your time. Cape of Storms, Table Bay, Falls Bay, Cape of Good Hope, Settler, it was not yours to take. Until next time, I am Atakwa and I was born extinct.